or object level variables. And second one is called as which variables? Class level variables. Okay. How many types of variables can you write inside a class? Two types. Instance variables, and one more is what? Class level variables. And when you're talking about methods or functions defined inside the class, so these methods or functions, what you write inside the class are how many types? Three types. One is called as instance method, class level method, and one more is what? Static method. And I said, what is the instance method or object level method? A method or function defined inside class with first argument as what? Self. Is called instance method or object level method. And this method is bind with what name? Object name. And this method cannot invoked without creating object. So this define object level operation. And I said, what is a self is? Okay, self is an argument name, but not a keyword. Self is what your argument name, but it is not a keyword. And self is an argument holder, address of what here? Object on which this method is called. Now self argument hold address of which object? Current object. And self is an implicit argument which receive the address of object on which the method is what here? Called. Self is an implicit argument which receive the address of object on which the method is called. And I said there is a class called car, and having how many? Two methods. One is a start and one more is what? Stop. And whenever you want to call this instance methods, you have to call it by creating which one? Object. So you are saying car1 dot, you are saying car1 dot start, and you are saying car1 dot which one? Stop. In the same way, car2 dot start, and you are saying car2 dot what is that? Stop. And you can see the message is car start and car stop. Okay, car start and car stop. You can see the message like this: car start and car stop, and car start and what is that? Stop. Okay, but object level methods, you have to call it only with what name? Object name, because this will define which operation? Object level operation. For example, so I'll try to tell you one more example on this. Object level methods. So object level methods define object level operations. Object level methods define which operations? Object level operations. For example, suppose I want to create a robo object. What I want to create? Robo object. So to create object first you have to develop which one? Class. Because I said class is a blueprint of what? Object. So class is a data type. Class is a data type, and class is a blueprint of what? Object. So what is the name of the class here? Robo. What is the name of the data type? Robo. And this robo is having a method called which one? Talk. Robo talk. But this is which method here? Object level. Because what is the first argument of this method? Self. So this method, you call it which method? Object level method, or it is also called which method? Instance method. It is object level method or instance method. Okay. Then after this, I'm trying to display the message saying that robo, what is that here? Talk. Robo talk. And there's one more method which is called as walk. Okay, there is one more method called walk. And this is also which method here? Object level method. So this is also object level method or which method? Instance method. And here I'm trying to display the message saying that robo. Okay, robo, what is that? Walk. So robo is having how many functions? Two functions. What is the first function? Talk. What is the second function? Walk. Robo is having how many functions? Two functions. The first function is the talk, and second function is what? Walk. But to call this talk and walk, what I have to do first? I have to create object. I cannot say robo. I cannot say robo.walk because robo is what here? Class. But is it this method is class level or object level? Object level. If I am saying robo.walk, if I am saying robo.walk, immediately, if I am saying robo.walk, immediately you'll get the error. Okay, if I say robo.walk, immediately it gives the error saying that walk is missing one required positional argument called which one? Self. Because what self is required? Object. Self is required object. Okay. So what I have to do first? I have to create the object robo1. What is the name of the variable? Robo1 is the name of the variable or name of the object. So robo2. Okay, what is the name of the object? Robo2. So how many objects I created? Two objects. So I want robo1 should walk. Then I send a I call the method robo1 dot. What is that? Talk. So I send means I call this method talk on which object? Robo1. It means in this case self is holding which object here? Robo1. It means which one will talk? Robo1 talk. If I run this, what is the message? Robo talk. Which robo is talk here? Robo1. If I'm saying robo2 dot talk, now then which method? So if I say robo2 dot talk, then which method is called? Talk method is called. Okay, robo2 dot talk means which method is called? Talk method is called. And this talk method called on which object? Robo2. In this case, self is holding the address of which object? Robo2. Now which robo will talk now? Robo2. Okay, in the same way, I'm saying robo1 dot walk. Which robo will walk now? Robo1. Which robo, if I'm saying robo2 dot walk, which robo will walk here? Robo2. So object level methods always bind with what name? Object name. Object level methods always bind with what name? Object name. Object level methods are bind with object name only. Suppose if I want to append, 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 what I have to do? First I have to create which object? List object. So list one, I'll say list one equal to what is that? List. So I can create this list object using this symbol. But in the place of symbol, I can use also type, right? What is the type I can use? List type. This will create which object here? List object. What is the name of this object here? List one. What is the name of this object here? List one. If I want to add anything in list one, what will I do? I'll say list one dot. What I'm saying, list one dot. What is that? Append. So I'm calling append method. I'm calling append method to add the values to which object? List one. It means append method currently bind with which object? List one. Append method currently hold the address of which object? List one. It means append method is called on which object here? List one. It means append method is performing the operation on which object? List one. Getting or not? So object level methods always perform the operations on which one? Objects. And these methods you can write either with arguments. You can write these methods either with arguments or without arguments. But the first argument must be which type? Self. And that self will refers to the current object. that self will refers to which object? Current object. That self will refer to which object here? Current object. For example, see here. Now you can write object level method. Object level method can be defined in two ways. One is without arguments and one is with arguments. without arguments, cannot receive what here? Values. Without arguments cannot receive the values. Without arguments cannot receive the values. What happened here? What questions you are asking here? So without arguments cannot receive the values. But if the method with arguments, okay, with arguments can receive what here? Values. So here, now if you take these methods like talk and walk, is it these methods are with arguments or without arguments? Without arguments. Okay, for example, see here, I try to write one class. Okay, there is a class. Okay, class, again, I'm writing robo. Again, I'm taking example of robo, and robo say, okay, a robo talk. Okay, robo talk, or I want to send a message. Okay, I want to send a message to which one? Robo. I want to send a message to what? Robo. Okay, should receive one command. Suppose robo is having one method called which one? Command. Robo is having a method called which one? Command. So command is a method. They should receive one command. And based on the command, the robo should perform operation, right? Based on the command, it should perform some operation. So it is having one argument. What is that argument? C. What is the name of this argument here? C. C is the name of the argument. What is the C here? Is the name of the argument. C is the name of the argument. And here I'm saying print C. C is nothing but command given to what? Robo. C is nothing but command given to what? Robo, right? What command you are giving, so that you are sending it, right? So I create number of robos. Now robo 1 is there. This is robo 1. And there is one more robo is there. That is robo 2. Now this is one more robo. I want to give the command to robo 1. Then what will I do? I'll say robo 1 dot. What is that command? What command you want to give? You want to give a command like, what is the command you are giving? Okay, say hello. Okay, say what is it? Hello. Say hello. Okay, what is the command I'm saying? I'm sending a command. What is the command I sent to the robo 1? Say hello. Okay, then second robo robo 2 dot command. I want to give one command to which one? Robo 2. What is the command I want to give it to a robo 2? That is say bye. What is the first one I've given? Say hello. And what is the second one I've given? Say bye. Okay. So who will say hello? Robo 1. Who will say bye? Robo 2. Okay, because this command is sent to which object here? Robo 1. And this command is sent to which object here? Robo 2. It means this method is bind with which object here? Robo1. So command method hold the address of which object? Robo1. Means this say hello message is sent to which one? Robo1, right? So this is it this command is with arguments or without arguments? With arguments. If it is with arguments, okay, it is with arguments, then what will happen? It will receive the value. If it is without arguments, then it cannot receive the value. If it is with argument, it will receive the value. But if it is without argument, then it cannot receive any value. With argument, receive the value, but without argument, cannot receive any value. Okay, that difference you have to understand between with arguments and without arguments. With arguments and without arguments, right? Okay, right? Yes. Okay, right now this you can call it as which methods? Instance methods or object level methods. So object level methods bind with what name? Object name. So the class is not only having method, just understand, just try to understand what is object level method. We'll see the applications. Okay, now, right. So then next we'll try to see object level what here? Variables are the same thing. You can call it as which variables? Instance variables. These are called object level variables or instance variables. The same thing you can call it as properties. The same thing you can call it as which one? Attributes. These are called as a properties, or the same thing you can call it as which one? Attributes. Properties or attributes, right? So object level variables or instance variables or properties, or what is it? Attributes. Okay. Properties are the same thing you can call it as which one? Attributes. So I said every object is having two things. One is every object is having two things. One is properties and one more is what? Behavior. Behavior is nothing but functionality and properties is nothing but state. For example, there is a student is there. Okay, assume that there is a student. Who is this here? Student is there. Student is having some properties. What are the properties of student? Like student is having roll number, name, and one more is what? Course. So roll number, name, and course are called as a properties of a student or not? Yes. In the same way, there is another person is there. There is another person, and this person is assume that customer is there. Customer is having some properties like account number, customer name, balance, account type. If you are developing banking application, so student is having roll number, name, and course, and customer is having account number, customer name, balance, and what is that? Account type. For example, assume that there is a triangle. If you take triangle is an object, so what triangle is having? Triangle is having properties like what? Base, and properties like what? Height. So triangle is having base and height. Okay. In the same way, if you take circle is there. If you take circle is object, circle is having some properties. What are the properties of circle? Radius. Means every object is having some properties. Every object is having properties. But how you define these properties? You define these properties or attributes, okay, by creating which variables? Object level variables. you create these properties, you create these properties, you create these properties by declaring which variables here, object level variables or instance variables, or by declaring object level variables are what, instance variables. Okay, so object level variables, object level variables are instance variables defines, okay, okay, define properties or attributes. Properties are attributes of which one, object. Object level variables or instance variables define properties or attributes of what, object. Define the properties or attribute of which one, object. Okay, so object level variables, memory is allocated, object level variables, memory is allocated on creation of which one, object. Object level variables, memory is allocated on creation of object. Object level variables bind with what name, object name. Okay, so these variables cannot called or invoked. Okay, okay, these variables cannot called or invoked without creating what here, object. Okay, object level variables bind with what name, object name, and these variables, object level variables bind with object name, and these variables cannot call or invoked without creating what here, object. Cannot call or invoke it without creating object, right? So just to try to understand this. Okay, just try to understand this, what is the meaning of object level variable or instance variable. So object level variables bind with object name, and these variables cannot call or invoked without creating what here, object. Cannot called or create without creating object, right? So within class object level variables, within class object level variables are created or access with what is that here, self. Within class object level variables are created or accessed with what here, self. What is self? Argument. And self is an argument name, and this argument hold address of which one? This self is the argument which holds the address of which one? Object. Self is an argument which holds the address of object or not? Yes. So how can you access object level variables inside the class? By using which one? Self. So within class, object level variables are created or accessed with what? Self. It means inside the class, object level variables, inside the class object level variables are accessed within, object level variables are accessed. Okay, access within. Inside the class, object level variables are accessed within which methods? Object level methods. Object level methods are which methods? Instance methods. It means which methods are having self? Which methods are having self here? Which methods are having self? Which methods are having self? Object level methods are having what? Self. Which methods are having self? Object level methods are instance. Instance methods are having what? Self. So inside the class, object level variables are accessed within, object level methods or instance methods, but you cannot access outside, because these variables are bind with what here? Self. But which methods are having self here? Object level methods or instance methods are having what here? Self. Getting on not? Within the class, you can access it or you can create it. Within class, you can access it or create it. You can create or access. You can create or what? Access only in which one? Object level methods. So how to create? Next is how to create. How to create object level. How to create object level variables. How to create object level variables or instance variables. how to create object level variables or instance variables, how to create object level variables or instance variables. First approach is using a special using a special method using a special method called which one? Constructor. And second one is using set attribute or get attribute functions, using set attribute or get attribute functions. And third one is using which class here? Properties class. So how many approaches are there? How many approaches are there here? Three approaches. How to create object level variables or instance variables using a special method called which one? Constructor. And using set attribute or what? Get attribute function. And third one is using which class here? Properties class. Okay, using a special method called constructor. And second one is using set attribute or what? Get attribute function. And third one is using which class? Properties class. Now these are the different approaches by using which you are creating instance variables or what? Object level variables. First we'll see using which one? A special method. And what is that special method you have? Constructor. So constructors. First one is which one? Constructors here. What is the first one here? Constructor. So constructor is a special method. Okay, constructor is what here? Special method. What is a constructor? Is a special method. Okay, constructor is a special method. What is a constructor here? Constructor is a special method. What is a constructor? It is a special method. And why you are using this method? Okay, constructor is a special method, but why you are using this method? Constructor is a special method, but why you are using this method? You are using this method to create which variables? Object level variables. Constructor is a special method. Second one is constructor is a which method? Instance method or object level method. And constructor method is executed automatically on creation of which one? Object. So the block of code which has to be executed, the block of code which has to be executed on creation of object is written inside which one here? Constructor. The block of code which has to be executed on creation of object is written inside which one here? Constructor. The block of code which has to be executed on creation of object that you are writing inside which one? Constructor. So this is executed automatically on creation of what? Object. On creation of object, what you want to do? You want to create which variables? Object level variables. Okay, now what is the syntax of writing this constructor? Is the name of this constructor is init. Okay, it is a special method, right? What is the name of this here? Init. But this method is prefixed with double underscore and suffixed with double underscore and having the first argument as what? Self. Because constructor is which method? Object level method only. Okay, object level method means what is the first argument of object level method? Self. Inside this init method, you include some statements. Statement 1 and what is that? Statement 2. These two statements are included inside which method? Init method. What is the first argument of this method? Self. What is the first argument of this method? Self. Right? So inside the init method, included how many statements here? 2 statements. That is statement 1 and one more statement is what? Statement 2. First statement is statement 1 and second statement is what? Statement 2. So constructor is used to define initial properties. initial properties of which one? Object. Constructor is used to define initial properties of object. You are defining the initial properties of the object. You are defining the initial properties of the object using which method here? Constructor method. You are defining the initial properties of the object using which method? Constructor method. You are defining the initial properties of the object using which method? Constructor method. Getting or not? Okay, just to try to understand. Constructor is used to define initial properties of the object. See, any method in Python, any method, whatever method you write, any method which you find with prefix with the underscore and suffix with what? Underscore. Okay, that method is called which one here? Magic method. Any method which is prefixed with double underscore and which is suffixed with what? Double underscore. That method is called which method? Magic method. That method is called which method? Magic method. And magic methods get executed automatically. You don't require to call these methods. These methods will be executed how? Automatically. So constructor is a magic method and this method is executed what? Automatically whenever you create the object. So initialization means whatever code you want to execute on creation of object, that you write inside which one? Constructor. For example, assume that there is a class. What is the name of the class? A. Then inside this, I'm writing one method. What is this method here? Init. What is init is called? What is init is called? Constructor. What is init is called? Constructor. What is init is called? Constructor. Init is called as a constructor, right? What is init is called? Constructor. This is a constructor, right? Inside this constructor, I'm displaying the message object created. Inside this, I display one message called which one? Object created. So what will happen? What will happen here? What will happen whenever I create object of A class? What will happen whenever I create object of which class? A class. I'm saying object 1 equal to which one? A. So here, what will happen is A. What is A here? What is A here? Class. What is A here? Class. A is a class. Class. A class. So this is called as which one here? A object. This is called as which object here? A object. What is the name of this object here? Object 1. So what will happen on creation of object? Now this parenthesis is there, no? This parenthesis is there. What is this parenthesis indicates? Constructor. What is this parenthesis indicates? You are calling one method. See, you are calling one method, right? You are calling one method, and this method, you are saying it as which one? Constructor. So what will happen on creation of object? It will call the constructor. It will call the constructor, and this it will call the constructor by sending the address of object 1. It will call the constructor by sending the address of what? Object 1. Self is holding the address of which one? Object 1. Then I'll get the message object created. Which object is created? Object 1 is created. Object 1 is created. In the same way, I'll try to say object 2, obj2 equal to A. So what is A here? Class. Means you are creating object of which class? You are creating object of which class? A class. And what is the name of this object here? Object 2. What is the name of this class here? Object 2. What is the name of this here? Object 2. The name of this is what here? Object 2. On creation of object, what will happen? What will happen on creation of object? Whenever you create the object, your object is created by calling which one? Constructor. What is the constructor here? Init. And this init is called by sending the address of which object? Object 2. So what is the message I'll get here? Object created. Which object is created here? Object 2. Ring on. So whenever you create the object, on creation of object, it will call one special method, and that special method you call it as which one? Constructor. That special method you call it as a constructor, right? Whenever you create object of a class, your object of a class is created by calling the constructor. So if I run this, now you can see object created and object what? Created, because how many objects I created? 2 objects. But are you called init? Are you called init? No, you have not called init, but init is called automatically, right? Init is called automatically whenever you create the object. So we can write a constructor with arguments. We can write a constructor with arguments or without the arguments also. We can write constructor with arguments. Okay, now we can write a constructor with arguments or without arguments also. So we can define constructor. We can define constructor without arguments, and second one is with arguments. We can define constructor. What we are saying, we can define constructor without arguments, with arguments. Constructor without arguments, constructor without arguments cannot receive values at the time of creating what? Object. Okay, but constructor with arguments receive values at the time of creating object. So we can define constructor in 2 ways, without arguments and with arguments. And constructor without arguments cannot receive values at the time of creating object, but constructor with arguments receives values at the time of creating what here? Object. At the time of creating object, and this is constructor, okay, without arguments, and one is with arguments. But here, is it this constructor is with arguments or without arguments? Without arguments. Because of that, are you send any values to this constructor? No. If you want to send values to this constructor, for example, class B is there. Within class B, I write a constructor having self. I said x comma y. I said x comma y, and I just display the message saying that inside what is this here? Constructor. Then print x value and what? Y value. Inside constructor and x value and y value. So this is which method here? Init method. And this init method receive how many values here? 2 values. That is x as well as what? Y. But when the constructor is called, when you create the object, can I write object 1 equal to b? So b means, are you calling constructor by sending values or without sending? Without sending. But this constructor is having how many arguments? 2. Means, is it these arguments are required or not? Yes. So this parenthesis indicates what? Constructor. This parenthesis indicates what here? Constructor. You are calling the constructor, right? But are you sending any values to this constructor? No. But this constructor required how many values? 2 values. I must send the values or not? Yes. If I don't send the values, what will happen? If I don't send the values, what will happen? Immediately, Python is given what? Error, saying that b.init missing how many required positional argument? 2 required positional arguments, that is x and y. Means I have to send how many values to this constructor? 2 values. because it is a constructor with what? Arguments. So what will happen? It will create the object first. What is the name of this object here? Object 1. What is the name of this object? Object 1. On creation of object, what will happen? Call the constructor. And this constructor receive how many values? X value as well as Y value. And is it also receive the reference of the object 1 or not? Yes. It means this constructor having a reference of which one? Object 1. And received how many values here? 2 values. One is X and one more is what? Y. So if you want to send values to the constructor, then write a constructor with what? Arguments. Suppose one more object is created, and what is this object is created here? Object 2. So what will happen on creation of object? It will call the constructor, and this constructor receive how many values here? 2 values. What is the value of X? 300. What is the value of Y? 400. So whenever you create the object, your object is created by invoking which one? Whenever you create the object, your object is created by calling which one? Constructor. Whenever you create the object, your object is created by calling which one? Constructor. Yes, just to try to understand this. So you can write a constructor with arguments. You can write a constructor without arguments. Okay, now you can write a constructor with arguments. You can write a constructor without arguments. Okay. So when you run this, now you can see the message. What is the message here inside? Constructor, and how many values here? 2 values. What is the value of X here? 100, and value of Y is 200. Inside constructor, value of X is what? 300, and value of Y is what? 400. Okay. Yes. So just try to understand what is a constructor is. It is also instance method. It is also instance method, but it is a special instance method which will be executed automatically whenever you create the object of a class. Which will be executed automatically whenever you create the object of the class. Okay. Which will be executed automatically whenever you create the object of a class. So that is what you have to remember. Okay. But using this constructor, what you are doing? You are defining the initial properties. Okay. Initial properties. For example, I want to represent whose data? Student data. I want to represent whose data? Student data. Tell me, student is having how many properties? 3. Suppose assume that roll number, name, and codes. Then how you create these properties or variables? Inside. Inside which one here? Constructor. I said no, always object level variables or instance variables are accessible within the class. Object level variables or instance variables are accessible within the class using which argument? Self. Object level variables or instance variables are accessible within the class using which argument? Self. Bind with what? Self. What I'm doing is here self dot Self means self is an argument name or not? Yes. That hold, self hold what? Address. Self hold what? Address. Address of which one? Object. Current object. So from object, from object, I am accessing one variable. What is that? Roll number. If the object doesn't have a roll number, it will create. If object doesn't have a variable, what will it do? It will create. What is a variable it will create in the object? Roll number. But what is the value of roll number? None. Then I'm saying self dot. Dot is for accessing. Okay, if it is not there, it will create. Okay, so self dot name. So within class, I said no, inside the class, object level variable is bind with what name? Self. Self is referring to the object or not? Yes. So within the object, you are looking for which variable? Roll number. If the object is having roll number, it change it to none. If the object doesn't have a variable, what will happen? Create. Create a variable called which one? Roll number. Create a variable called which one? Name. Create a variable called which one? Course. Create a variable called roll number. Create a variable called name. Create a variable called what? Course. So just try to understand this. Whenever you create the object, suppose I create the object by saying student 1 equal to which one? Student. I say student 1 equal to what? Student. So what will happen on creation of object? Whenever you create the object of a class, whenever you create the object of a class, the object is what here? Created. What is the name of the object created here? Student 1. So what will happen on creation of object? It will call which one? Constructor. On creation of object, it will call the constructor. This constructor is called by sending the reference of which object? Student 1. What self is holding? This self is nothing but student 1 or not? Yes. So from student 1, you are accessing roll number. Is it student 1 is having roll number? No. What will happen? Create. What will it create here? Roll number. And what is the roll number of student 1? None. Again you are saying self. Self is referring to what again? Student 1. And inside the student 1, it look for which variable? Name. Is the student 1 is having name? No. It will create a variable name. And what is the name of the student 1? None. Inside the student 1, self is referring to student 1. And within student 1, it look for which variable? Course. Is it any variable called course within student 1? No. It will create a variable course. Now student 1 is having how many variables? 3 variables. Student 1 is having how many properties? 3 properties, that is roll number, name and course. After executing, it will return to this place. Is it execution of this statement is completed or not? Yes. Then go to the next statement now. Student 2 equal to which one? Student. So what will happen? One more object is created. So there is another object is created or not? Yes. What is the name of this object? Student 2. What is the name of this object? Student 2. So what will happen on creation of object? Tell me what will happen on creation of object? On creation of object, it will invoke what? Constructor. And this constructor having the reference of which object now? Student 2. Now this time self is referring to which object? Student 2. Inside the student now, self means nothing but student 2. Student 2. In student 2, is it any roll number? No. In student 2, is it any roll number? No. It will create roll number. What is the value of roll number here? None. It will create a variable name. What is the value of name here? None. It will create a variable called which one? Course. What is the value of course here? None. Now each student is having how many variables? 3 variables. Or each student is having how many properties? 3 properties. Each student is having how many variables? Three variables. And each student is having how many properties? Three properties. Two cores, none. Okay, student one, yes. So once you run this, now you can see these values are none or not. Yes, this is none. And all these are nuns, right? None, none again. So what is the values given here? None only, right? Same thing, like suppose I'm creating complex number one. What is this now? Complex number one. Complex number one equal to complex. Complex number is having how many properties? Complex number is having how many values? Two values. One is real and one more is which one? Imagine. It means complex number is having how many variables? Two variables. What is the first variable? Real. What is the second variable? Imaginary. Student is having how many variables? Three. Complex number is having how many variables? Two. But what is the value of real and imaginary? 0.0. But what is the roll number, name and course of the student here? None. So initial values of student is what? None. But initial values of complex number is what? 0. Initial value of student is none. But initial values of complex number is what? 0. If I'm saying print a complex number 1 dot, what is this? Real. Complex number 1 dot, what is this? Imaginary. Complex number 1 dot, real. What is the real value? 0.0. What is imaginary value? 0.0. Real value is 0.0 and imaginary value is also what? 0.0. So just try to understand this. Okay. Yes. But this is user defined class and this is, see, this is user defined class and this is predefined class. This is user defined class and this is what? Predefined class. So this class you develop, but this class is already developed. This class you develop, right? This class is already there. Because I require to represent whose data? Student data. So I develop which class? Student class. I want to represent whose data? Student data. So I develop which class? Student class. Okay, are you getting or not? Okay, just try to understand this here. But I want to assign values to this. I want to assign values to this. Then what will happen? I can assign the values within the constructor. What I can do, I can assign the values within the constructor. For example, I said roll number is 101 and name is what here? Naresh. And course is what here? Some Python. So course is what here? Python. So what will happen if I create a student one? I'll say student one equal to what? Student. I say student one equal to student. So what will happen on creation of object here? So what will happen on creation of object? happen here? Student object is created. What is the name of this object here? Student 1. What is the name of this object? Student 1. So what will happen on creation of object? It will call the, what will happen on creation of object? It will call the constructor. What will happen on creation of object? It will call the constructor. And this constructor refers to the student 1 or not? Yes. What will happen on creation of object? It will call the constructor, and constructor refers to which one? Object, student 1. Inside the student 1, roll number is there or not there? Not there. Then what will happen? It will create one variable called which one? Roll number. So that is what you call it as which variable? Instance variable, or same thing you call it as object level variable, because this variable is created in object level or not? Yes. What is the roll number of the student? 101. Then self is referring to student 1, and within student 1 it will create one variable. What is that? Name. And what is the name of this student here? Naresh. Within student 1 it will create a variable. What is a variable? It will create course. And what is the course of the student here? Python. What is the course of the student here? Python. Ring honor. So these are called which variables here? Instance variables or object level variables. So what will happen if I create one more student? What will happen if I create one more student saying student 2 equal to student? What will happen if I create one more student saying student 2 equal to what is that? Student. So one more student object is created or not? Yes. What is the name of this object? What is the name of this object here? Student 2. What is the name of this object here? Student 2. So what will happen on creation of object? Will it call the constructor or not? Yes. So this constructor refers to which object now? Student 2. Within student 2 it will create what again? Roll number. But what is the roll number of this student again? What is the roll number of the student again? 101. What is the name of this student again? Naresh. Okay, what is the course of this particular student again? Python. It means what is the default value of this roll number, name and course? 101, Naresh and what? Python. Is it every student is created with same data or different data? Same data. But I don't want to create with the same data. I want to create with what? Different data. I don't want to create with the same data. Now, if I say student 1 dot roll number and student 1 dot name and student 1 dot what is that? Course. Okay, print student 2 dot roll number and student 2 dot name and student 2 dot what is that? Course. Will it display the same details or different details? Same details. But I don't want to have the same details. I want to have what? Different details. Then what will I do? At the time of creating object, I send the values. In that case, I have to write a constructor with arguments or without arguments? With arguments. I have to write a constructor with arguments or without arguments? With the arguments, right? So this is an example of constructor without a student. This is a constructor without arguments. Is it object is initialized with same values or different values? Same values. But I want to have what here? Different values. I don't want to have the same values, but I want to have what? Different values. Then you write a constructor. Then you write a constructor with arguments. So this constructor receive how many values? 3 values. It received the roll number, it received the name, and it received what? Course. But are you writing here roll number? No. You are assigning what? Input. So whatever value it is received, that value is assigned to which one? Roll number. And whatever name it will receive, that value is assigned to what? Name. And whatever course it will receive, that value is assigned to what? C. So R is assigned to which variable? Roll number. N is assigned to which variable? Name. And C is assigned to which variable? Course. Now, at the time of creation, I'll try to define roll number, name of the student, and one more is what? Course of the student. Then one or two. This is a name of the student, and this is what? Course of the student. Because is it this constructor is with arguments or without arguments? With arguments. Is it this constructor is with arguments or without arguments? With arguments. If the constructor is with arguments, will it receive the input or not? Yes. So when I create a student one is created. What is the name of this object here? Student one. What is the name of this object? Student one. And the student one received the roll number, name, as well as what? Course. And one implicit argument is there. What is that? Self. And self is referring to the student one or not? Yes. Then I said here self dot roll number equal to what? R. Self dot. Self is referring to student one. Is a student one is having roll number? No. It will create roll number, and to this roll number is assigned which value? R. And what is the value of roll number? 101. Self dot name. Is it any variable called name? No. It will create a name and assign the n value. What is the value of n here? Nourish. What is the value of n here? Nourish. Now self dot. It will create one variable. What is the variable? It will create course. And what is the value of course here? Python. What is the value of course here? Python. So student one is created with three attributes with the values 101, nourish, and what? Python. Then after that, student two, what will happen here? One more object is created. And what is the object is created here? Student two. What object is created here? Student two. And student two is created by sending roll number and name, and one more is what? Course. It is called by sending roll number, name, and course, and it is also having a self. Self is referring to which object? Student two. And self dot means you are accessing roll number from where? Student two. Is a student two is having roll number? No. It will create a roll number with value what here? 1 or 2. Then it will create a name. It will create a name with the value. What is that? Suresh. It will create a course. What is that attribute? It will create course with the value which one? Java. It means is it my object is created with same values or different values? Different values, because that initial values I define at the time of creating object or not? Yes. Now constructor with argument receive the values, but constructor without arguments doesn't receive the values. Now you can see, is it object values are same or different? Different. Each object is created with different values or not? Yes. Each object is not created with same values. Object is not created with same values. Object is not created with same values. Object is created with what? Different values. Okay, right? So please try to understand this, how you are trying to do this. Okay. So when you are writing a constructor with arguments and when you write a constructor without arguments, okay, that thing you have to understand here. Okay. 1 minute, 1 second, 1 minute, 1 minute. Then what we are doing is, yeah. Now you can write a constructor with arguments. You can write a constructor with arguments, and you can write a constructor without arguments, right? Okay, you can write a constructor with arguments, and you can write a constructor without arguments. Okay, fine. The next is, so I said, what is the advantage of encapsulation is data hiding, right? What is the advantage of encapsulation? Data hiding. But are you accessing the data or not? Yes. You are accessing data, right? You are accessing data. You are accessing data. Is it main is able to access it or not? Yes. Outside, are you able to access the data or not? Yes. But I should not allow to access the data, right? If any operation wants to do, I should do it with the help of only methods. But should not access the data directly. We are accessing this roll number, we are accessing roll number, we are accessing name, we are accessing what? Course. Are you accessing this data directly or not? Yes. Okay, this data should not be accessed what? Directly. This data should not access what here? Directly. Because the advantage of encapsulation is data hiding, right? The advantage of encapsulation is data hiding. Okay. So how can you hide the data? Hiding is nothing but preventing data access from outside functions. Okay. Preventing data access from where? Outside functions. Outside functions should not access the data. In order to access it, it should access it only by using which functions? Related functions, but it should not access by using what? Unrelated. It should access it by using related functions, but it should not access it using what? Unrelated. Getting or not? Then what you have to do is, here, okay, you have to declare the members of the class. The members of the class can be declared. Members means variables. Whatever variables or methods which are there inside the class, the members of the class can be declared as what? Private. What is the first one here? Private. Or it can be what? Protected. Okay, it can be declared as a private, or it can be declared as what? Protected, or it can be declared as what? Public. The members of the class can be declared as a private, protected, and one more is what? Public. Private, protected, or public. So here, private, protected, private comma protected. So here private comma protected and public are called access what here? Modifiers. These are called as access modifiers, and access modifiers defines the accessibility of members of the class. Access modifiers defines the accessibility. Access modifiers define the accessibility of members of the class. So private members private members are prefixed with double underscore. If you want to declare any member as a private, if you want to declare any member as a private, you have to prefix with what? Double underscore. If you write double underscore, then it is called as which one? Private. Private members are prefixed with what here? Double underscore. Private members are prefixed with what here? Double underscore. And protected members are prefixed with what here? Single underscore. And public members are not prefixed with anything. Any underscore. Public is not prefixed with any underscore. What is the meaning of this is, for example, okay, private members are prefixed with double underscore and protected members are prefixed with what here? Single underscore. And public members are not prefixed with any underscore. Public members are not prefixed with any underscore. That is what private, public, and protected. So what will happen if I am writing, for example, there is a class A is there. Within class A, I am writing underscore underscore M1. I said underscore underscore M1. Now, the method is prefixed with what? Double underscore. This is called which method? This is called as which method? Private M1 method. This method is what here? Private. And if the method is a private, I cannot call outside. I cannot invoke it. I cannot call it. I cannot say object 1.m1. Is it M1 is there or not there? There. Is it M1 is there or not there? There. But can I call it? No. It is given immediately. A object has no attribute called what? M1. But is it A object is having M1 or not? Yes. But can I call it by saying double underscore M1? No. Even though if I'm calling it, it is given what? Error. Error is given because this method is what here? Private. This method is a private and private cannot be accessed outside. But where I can call this method? Within the class. I can use this method only within the class, but I cannot call this method where? Outside. If I'm writing M2, M2 is prefixed with anything? No. Then this is called as which method? Public method, public M2 method. Can I call M2 method or not? Yes. I can call M2 method because M2 is which method here? Public method. If I say object 1.m2, what is the message? Public M2 method. But if I'm saying object 1 dot, if I'm saying object 1.m1, it is saying M1 is not there. If I say double underscore, it is given what? A object has no attribute called which one? M1. But M1 is there or not there? There. But you cannot access it outside the, it is there, but you cannot access it outside the class. It is there, but you cannot access it outside the class because it is which member? Private. Because it is a private. Now this will give an error, right? This will give an error because privates are not accessible where? Outside the class. But where privates are used only within the class. Where the privates are used only within the class, but privates are not used outside the class. Only within the class, but cannot accessible outside the class. Remember this. Within the class, but not outside the class. But I put that in comments, right? So when you comment it, it is executed only which method? Public method. But you remove that comment and check. Okay. If you want to check private is accessible or not, then you remove that comment and check. Then immediately it gives what? Immediately it gives what? Error. Immediately it gives what here? Error. Now public M2 method. What is the message? Public M2 method. Public M2 method. Reading or not? Public what here? M2 method. Okay. So privates are not accessible, but which one is accessible? Publics are accessible. Privates are not accessible outside. Only public members are accessible where? Outside. Okay, right? Please try to understand. These are the basics. All these are what here? Basics. Basics of understanding what is object oriented and how to build your own data type. And when you build your own data type, you also define certain things like right. Yes, but protected, I'll tell you once we go for inheritance. Protectors are very much useful when you're working with the inheritance, but you don't find the difference if you're writing in one class. So private members are accessible. Private members are accessible within class, but cannot accessible outside the class. Okay. And when it comes to the public members are accessible. Public members are accessible within class. Public members are accessible within class and which one? Outside the class. Means it can access by the members of the same class. Public members can be accessible by the members of the same class, and public members are accessible by the non-members. Non-members means the members are the functions which are there outside the class. But how can you find out is it public or private? By seeing the prefix. By seeing the prefix, it is called as which one? Public or private. If it is double underscore, it is what? Private. Now, suppose constructor is there. No. Constructor is having double underscore or not? Yes. Then is it private? No. If I'm writing double underscore, again double underscore, because the name of the method itself is what? Underscore underscore init underscore underscore is the method name. If you want to make it this as a private, you have to add two more underscores. If you add two more underscore, then constructor becomes what? Private. Okay, but constructor name is what? Underscore underscore init underscore, because identifier can start with underscore or not. Yes. So it means constructor is not private here. Constructor is a public. If you want to make the constructor as a private, you have to add two more underscores there. If you add two more underscores, then constructor becomes what? Private. Then that constructor you cannot call it where? Outside. That constructor you cannot call where? Outside. Okay. So data hiding, but here is it data is hidden or function is hidden? Tell me, is it this is data is hidden or function is hidden? Function. But I want to hide the data. Okay, this function is hidden. This particular functionality is what here? Hidden. But only M2 is visible because M2 is what here? Public. What is it? M1 is visible outside? No, because this is declared as what? Private. So the functions are declared private. In the same way, can you declare the data also as a private? Yes. So what do you do when you declare? If you want to declare variables as a private, then you'll try to put instance variables. Now roll number is there. I make it as what? Underscore underscore. Is it roll number is private or not? Yes. If I'm writing underscore underscore, what is that? Name. Is it name is a private or not? Yes. If I'm writing underscore underscore course, is it course is a private or not? Yes. Getting on. So roll number is private, name is a private, and course is also private. Now, can you able to access roll number, name, course? No. If I run this, immediately it is given no attribute called which one? Roll number. But roll number is there or not there? There. If I say underscore underscore roll number, still it is given. Student object has no attribute called which one? Roll number. But roll number is there or not there? There. I cannot access it where? Outside. Outside functions cannot access this data. It means, is it data is hidden? Is it data is hidden or not? Yes. Then how can I operate this data? By using the methods of which class? Student class. We'll discuss about that, like how to declare data as a private, and then how can you access private data where? Outside. But maybe tomorrow we'll discuss that. Today we'll just stop it here, and tomorrow we'll continue with writing setter methods, getter methods, and all these things, right? So today we'll stop it here, and tomorrow we'll continue.